Assalamu alaikum, people of Syria. This is an article by International Herald Tribune, as you can see, Wednesday, May 11th, 2011. It says here, Syria elite to stand firm, insider says. Assad confident insists alternative to government is instability and strife. This is an article about Rami Makhlouf. We've been saying in the demonstrations and other people all over the world how important is Rami Makhlouf in the ruling of Syria. And he is really the finance minister, he is the tycoon, he is the one who controls the economy of Syria. One of the interesting points that he mentioned in the interview, it was 3 hours interview, he says, if there is no stability here, there is no way there will be stability in Israel. Look, this guy, he's the cousin of Bashar al-Assad. The decision of the government now is that they decided to fight, Mr. Makhlouf said. Very important article. We go now to page 4 of the same newspaper. Okay, as you can see, Rami Makhlouf now is one of the most powerful person in Syria, although he has no official status, but because it is a farm, the Assad family and the Makhlouf family, they treat Syria as a farm. So now let's carry on with the article on page 4. As you can see, Syrian elite will fight to the end, Assad confident says. Okay, now Mr. Makhlouf's warnings of instability and sectarian strife like Iraq's have emerged as the government's rallying cry, as it deals with a degree of dissent that its officials admit caught them by surprise. So they claim that they were caught by surprise, as you know, although Tunisia started a few months before the uprising of Syria. Now notice this here. Although Mr. Assad has the final say, he said, which means Mr. Makhlouf, policies were formulated as a joint decision. So it's the family of Assad who decides with him. He doesn't decide by himself, Bashar al-Assad, but his family, his cousins decide with him as well, and his brothers and his sister. We believe there is no continuity, he says. He says, we believe there is no continuity without unity. He said, as a person, each one of us knows we cannot continue without staying united together. Then another point, I would like to draw your attention to this article. We will sit here, we call it a fight until the end. That's what he keeps threatening in the article. As you can see, he is the tycoon and the most powerful financial minister in Syria, the real one. Forget about what Bashar says, this is the same government, but this is really the real minister of finance. He added later, they should know when we suffer, we will not suffer alone. So he's threatening the neighboring countries, basically. The US government, which imposed sanctions on him in 2008, has accused Mr. Makhlouf of manipulating the judicial system and using the intelligence services to intimidate his rivals. As you know, Rami Makhlouf and many people have been saying in demonstrators that he pushes his rivals, he's threatened them by using security forces against them and against their family and their houses, so they run away from Syria. The example is the Mercedes agent and the computer agent. A lot of Syrian agents, they were threatened by the Makhlouf family, especially Hafiz and Rami Makhlouf, and they had to leave the business or even leave the country. So as you can see, this is a very interesting point that you should note. I repeat it again. The US government, which imposed sanctions on him in 2008, has accused Mr. Makhlouf of manipulating the judicial system and using the intelligence services to intimidate his rivals, because it's his farm. Syria to him, it's his property, it's his farm, it's not a country. They don't accept the Syrian country. To them, Syria is a farm or their private property. Now here, he suggested that anger at him arose from jealousy and long-standing suspicions that he serves as the family's banker. By the way, I visited his brother's house, Hafiz Makhlouf, in Sloane Street in Knightsbridge in London a few years ago, and many workers who worked for his brother, they told us so many things, and we were told also that he earns about 700,000 a day minimum. He doesn't accept for less than £700,000 a day or $700,000 a day. That's the minimum earning he earns from his power and his commissions and his putting pressure, on his rivals and getting rid of them. There's a very interesting point here. This article by the International Herald Tribune. He serves as an instrument too in Mr. Assad's vision of economic modernization, where Syria serves as a crossroads of regional trade and a hub for oil and gas pipelines that link Iraq and the Gulf to the Mediterranean and Europe. So as you can see in the demonstration, some people said that, if the problems continue in Syria and these Assad family do not leave, they are really a serious danger to Syria, because they control the oil and gas pipelines that link Iraq and the Gulf to the Mediterranean and Europe. So these gangsters, you have to be careful. You have to get rid of them as quickly as possible, otherwise they will affect the oil prices, and otherwise they will use gangsters to hit those oil pipelines. So please make sure that you don't give them more power, you give them less power, because they are people who behave like gangsters. Now here, another interesting point. Concerns are growing over the uprising's economic impact, deepened by Syria's growing isolation and flight of capital. So there's rumors, and so many people are saying that they are withdrawing their money from the Syrian banks, and even the Syrian government also is using some of the money of these private investors, and they don't know where the money is going. Now finally, a very interesting point here in this article, I would like to draw your attention to it. He warned that the alternative would mean war at home. This is what Rami Makhlouf is claiming in the article, in the interview. He warned that the alternative would mean war at home and perhaps abroad, led by people he described as Salafists, the government's name for militant Islamists. He said, "We won't accept it," he said. "People will fight against them. Do you know what this means? It means catastrophe, and we have a lot of fighters." So these people, they mean that they can use fighters from Lebanon and from Iraq, because they smuggle things for them, and they have the allegiance to them. So as you can see, it's a big mafia in Syria. Unfortunately, it's been growing for many years. And please make sure that you bring democracy, and make sure that you bring stability to Syria, and get rid of the Assad family and the Makhlouf family. Otherwise, the area will be really unstable. And thank you so much for listening, the people of Syria. Have a nice day.